way past my bedtime, but I gotta get this crap put out because I'm sick of repeating the same shit to these. Sorry about my language. Um, to these reporters. I don't like most of these reporters anyway, but I think how else do we get this out here? So let's talk about retired Major Jeffrey Harris, who worked there. He was in my chain of command. He signed my green separation, which means I resigned, retired. He signed off on that. Well, he got hired, and apparently, I guess he had a prior felony indictment as a Key West police officer. You can look this up in the news articles. I think he ended up later trying to sue them. I don't know the outcome of that, but he avoided conviction via deferred prosecution, but allegedly failed, I guess, to disclose this during hiring. So he became a deputy and they didn't know about this, while other applicants were denied for lesser omissions. Harris was promoted multiple times, including homicide supervisor. Again, I ain't knocking on the guy's work as a detective, but they pushed this up, and if it's exactly how it was spelled out in these news articles by multiple sources, you had a guy that didn't, or nobody found, even no fault of his, but nobody found this on an applicant for the sheriff's office way back when, and he's pushed up the ranks with all this. Like, it's just mind blowing, but it shows you like constant histories of this stuff going on with their own people. So let's knock on there. Retired Chief Deputy Donald Lazinski. He's named as a defendant in multiple civil suits, including the one I mentioned before by Demetrius Dixon, who alleged discrimination, harassment. Again, I mention all these lawsuits because they have this giant legal team, and it's necessary for car crashes and a lot of stuff. And they don't just do lawsuits. There's a lot of legal stuff, contractual stuff. I mean, and let's face it, people love to sue the cops. I get it. They're necessary. But then how far does it go and how much taxpayer dollars are wasted when their own people are suing? And Demetrius, who's a black deputy, he's one of those guys I watched. I think this is my opinion, that he was pretty much used because of that. He was in the Army prior. He's a good cop. And he asked, he had some kind of I don't know if it was described as learning disability, but the test environment was more of a struggle for him. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. People learn differently, but if it's about how to do on the test. If he's having a hard time doing the test here, but he finishes the test no matter what, because he has to be in this room versus this room so he can concentrate, whatever the situation was, what's the problem? If the outcome is the outcome, what's the problem? He ain't cheating. He ain't cheating like the rest of them. So they just berated him like he's a dummy and like, you're this, that, whatever. So he filed that suit. I talked to him years after, I should say after he left. And I don't know the outcome of that, but it just, again, shows you this is retired Donald Lazinski, and she's been named in multiple of these civil suits from internal investigations. They go on and on and on. I can't even keep up with them. I couldn't even put them all in here. The shit that's been sent to me the last couple of days is crazy. You guys can look this all up. So, go on to one last thing here. Captain Troy Saunier. I love Troy as a guy. He's a great cop, but I have to put this out here because, we got to be transparent. I don't want to hide from this, but I don't recall there being any at the time. We all said, where's the press release on this? Because out of fairness to the public, they need to know stuff like this. Not the sheriff now who's saying, hey, we need fair and impartial investigation into the sheriff's office over these investigations, not attack the disgruntled former detective and put my, I guess, alleged misdoings and your version of how it happened, or the title of it that makes it look bad, and try to make me look bad. You did that, but you didn't put anything out about this former narcotics supervisor who was terminated in charge of narcotics, and he worked narcs for a long time, for positive cocaine use, fired. No public disclosures made, jeopardizing credibility in numerous narcotics cases. Now imagine these lawyers known as then in the public. Don't you think that people are like, wait a second, the narcotics supervisor is doing cocaine? Where'd this come from? I don't know where it came from at the time, but he was a party. But That's not the point. The point is the disclosure and transparency. Well, we know who was in charge. Yeah. So, the gross and direct failures and misuse of funds by Sheriff Conister. Let's see here. Well, the thing is, Chad, you are an elected public official. So, pretty much anybody can have their opinion about you, and they can pretty much say anything they want about you, and that does not apply to you, vice versa, by your own SOPs. You can defend yourself. You can say this isn't true, but you can't go on the attack. And I'm not just talking about me, I'm talking about other things you do. But you certainly can't retaliate against your critics knowingly in this happening. But let's talk about this cheating and fraudulent coursework. You damn well knew or should have known that your staff engaged in this academic design by using outside parties or HCSO resources. And I think, Chad, you and I both know who some of those resources are, or allegedly are. Maybe they'll come out. I don't know. Depends on who investigates. Maybe they will, if it all comes out by the right agency. And there's so much stink on this that it definitely calls for the FBI and FDLE to come in here, somebody outside, and look at this, because you cannot be trusted to use your own people, contrary to what you've said, because your own people that are in these command positions have proven failures and are dishonest. So we can say there's no trusting body. And if this didn't happen, what are you worried about? Let an outside organization look at this and interview these people under oath, especially a federal agency. So you did obtain your master's degree, I know. So if any of this was done fraudulently by these people, the statutes on this are listed in this, and they're felonies and misdemeanors. So I got to question you this, Chad. If you were one place on your computer sending in paperwork from your laptop, like a lot of these online courses did, like I did, and your IP address says where you're sending it from, you're one place when your paper's being submitted. You know, I back up. Yeah, there's a lot of ex-cops that are professors at St. Leo. So I just wonder if those guys have access to that data or data people. And I'm just throwing it out there. So if your picture is somewhere at a public function the same day your paper is submitted, kind of odd. Because I'm not a musician. That's a joke. I'm not a magician. Some of you guys will get that reference. How the hell can you be in one place? I mean, how'd you do it? I'm not saying you did it. I'm just saying, if that was done, how could you do that? How could you be over here doing your princess wave that you do, and your required homework be done from here? Magic. Just saying. Might be some people that could be talked to at St. Leo by these agencies. Just asking for a friend. Because you remember, I went to St. Leo too, and I did all this, and I obtained my master's. And I could show you my paperwork and my IP address. As a matter of fact, I can download it. So, just saying. So, let's talk about this one. Is absolutely fucking disgraceful. And I don't care what anybody says. This is directly related to the sheriff's office. And majority of this happened not just under yours, under Christy Poor's, even after you's watch, but it correlates with the argument of all these deputies that were fired that were saying we were allowed to do the XYZ. But in the meantime, this warrants shit wasn't being done, and as I showed after this case with this name, everybody's going to remember and go like, holy fuck. Proof in my master's thesis that I gave to your captain, and it was passed up the chain. It's undeniable that these processes were so flawed, and it was brought to the attention, and so much laziness and neglect that it's a absolutely direct contribution to the murder of Officer Charles Condick. I will go on any TV show, I will go in front of any jury, any deposition, if I had access still, especially the sheriff's office. But from what I know, I can show you the historical side of this because I corrected all that. Remember, I was put in that position. I don't know if you even knew that was going on, Chad. Maybe it wasn't told to you, but that's what I was doing when all those little arrests were put on the blotter. And I tell everybody, you want to go back and look at the blotter and look at the case history, look at the solves, look at the notes. But we can show how we button this up because your warrants clerks were so screwed up with the poor supervision they had. And as a matter of fact, while we were back there, we showed so much that the sergeants got rid of the head warrants clerk and put her in a different position, pretty much demoted her. Not all of them were bad. Trust me, there's some fantastic warrants clerks back there. Great people, hard workers. Boy, they were tough. They were mostly female. They had some attitude sometimes, but they did a great job. I'm not going to deny them that. But they didn't do the job. They did the job to their potential, but not how it necessarily should have been done. That's how we've always done it, bullshit. And it was wrong. We proved it wrong. And it was ignored. So, Marco Perea was listed as absconded by an FDOC officer. For the public, what that means is they went to check on him. And let's face it, these guys got thousands of cases or hundreds of cases a year. And they're supposed to meet this guy, and he ain't there. He's not at the house. He's not, and they can pretty much search it. He's not there. And somehow Marco Padilla got his probation transferred. His conviction was in Hillsborough County to live over in Tarpon Springs in Pinellas County. He got his transfer from FDOC. So then they started supervising him through the Pinellas County FDOC. Nothing to do with the sheriff's office. The Florida Department of Correction operates in different counties, different ways. It's just how they did it. So this FDOC officer goes by, she says, to check on him. Now, this is going to blow your mind in a minute. And I think she went by one time when they're supposed to check multiple times. The guy does work. He did work or going back, whatever. But they kind of need to build a case, too, to violate his probation. Well, she listed him as absconded, meaning when she went the next time and she wrote this report, he wasn't there. So they issue a warrant for him. They need to know where he's at. He's on paper, as they call it, being on paper, probation. So because his warrant is out of Hillsborough County, when she submits her paperwork, it comes back to our warrants clerks, and they were trained to read this improperly. They see this thing that says at large, so they are absconded. Should say so. They were taught, if it says that, put him in the warrant in the NCIC system as at large, meaning he's out there in no man's land. When in fact, he has a historical address with family where his probation originally was in Hillsborough County. So what should have been done with all these warrants is it be assigned to a detective to look into it, because we don't go off of what an FDOC officer says is at large. We need to go check that and find out for ourselves, because let's face it, these guys all go back to mama, whatever. Any cop tell you this, even the bad guys say, hey, I say this, and I leave, my PO's chasing me, I'm going to go back. So he goes back to mama in Hillsborough County, but because it wasn't assigned to a detective, and they go by and they'll check, and they had to do by own policy, they listed in there how many checks they do, and then they push the warrant off back to an at-large test. They can't find him. So, but they confirmed he wasn't in all these places. And that's part of due diligence, keeps cases alive. Probation not necessarily needs to be kept alive, but same thing. They should have done that. But since there was no detective assigned to it, he remained at large. When in fact, he was laying his head at mama's house in Hillsborough County, which we found after the fact by multiple witnesses. And but he goes over back to Tarpon Springs, is hanging out by his old apartment, And that warrant should have been, this did not happen, a teletype sent because he's out of county, and there was such a breakdown in this process, they just put at large. But what should have been done was, especially because of his type of warrant, a teletype sent to Pinellas County Sheriff's Office for an attempt pickup through their warrants unit or a local agency. And then it comes back and they say, not there, and we add to ourselves. So this wasn't done. We had that update. Wasn't done at all. So these guys don't know, all the Tarpon Springs officer all of them couldn't possibly know this guy has a warrant for felonies and living there. And so officer conduct goes out there on a loud noise complaint. And I went to the scene afterward to look into this myself and interviewed a guy, and pulls up in his patrol car, and this guy steps out from a tree thinking he's looking for him and just guns him down, ambushes him. No chance. Falls to the ground, and the piece of shit runs officer conduct over, and I'm sorry for his family that you have to hear this again, run him over like he's a piece of garbage and flees the scene. And thankfully the Tarpon officers are pretty squared away over there, did catch up to him, and I don't know how they didn't exact revenge on him right there the way this happened, but got him in custody, and this guy, of course, is later convicted. Now, as soon as it came on the news and everything, it said he had a warrant out of Hillsborough County. I go, what? So I immediately grab it on my computer, laptop. I'm sitting at home. I could log on. I worked a lot of overtime to get paid from my laptop. And I was pretty much on call unofficially, getting called by all kinds of people for all kinds of things. I didn't mind because I like catching bad guys. And I start looking at this and I'm like, uh-oh. This one done. How was this guy put at large test? Nobody ever looked for him. So, of course, I'm bringing up supervisors at the time, and they're like, well, this is bad. I mean, could it have been prevented? We truly really don't know, but let's play a 50-50 that we would have caught Marco Perea when this not happened. But wouldn't we rather be more satisfied that we gave 50% of the chance and this guy could be alive versus we didn't do this properly and it was all because of laziness, because supervisors are out on freaking boats when they're supposed to be at work, not worried about these warrant systems? When we rather done that, maybe officer conduct would be alive. So I had to sit there on this for a couple years because I'm back there and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Who do I tell? There's nobody to tell. Thought about leaking it. I was like, it's going to get back to me because I already raised hell about it. And afterwards, when I was in a safe position, I did reach out to Officer Conduct's widow. I'm not going to say her name. And I know I offered all this and said, unfortunately, you're past the statute of limitations, but we showed the FDOC officer lied and whipped this stuff. She had eventually been terminated, I guess, for another type of allegation. So there's nobody going after on that side. And Officer Conduct's son wanted to follow in her daddy's footsteps and become a police officer, and he did. And I think she knew that if we pushed back on this, and she had already, I'm not even going to share a story what happened to her about his pension and the decimation of his grave or marker over there in Tarpon Springs, but that poor lady went through some hell, and now she's an advocate out there for people regarding some of these systems, and both her sons became very, very fine police officers. So we kind of had to hide all that, but that did occur. And again, all these players here, this isn't made up. This is all realistic, discoverable shit here. But you know me, I like to lie about smashing my windshield. Now, this one just absolutely infuriates me, and it should infuriate every single police officer, especially at the sheriff's office. And I actually had a guy, a respected friend of mine, try to defend this at one time. Then I found out the facts. I'm like, you son of a bitch, you drank this Kool-Aid too? Sergeant Yannick Amin. Yannick is a no bullshitting Indian American former sergeant here. He was on a SWAT team. Fast talking dude. I think former 82nd Airborne. Dude squared away. Worked his ass off. And he could rub me wrong sometimes. We could back and forth. But he was a good sergeant. He was my supervisor. I think he was a corporal at the time, but he's a good dude. And his lovely wife and everything. So the George Floyd unrest is going on, and nation's at a strange place here. These riots going. Well, we already know, and I'll allude to this, that HCSO's contribution in the George Floyd riots was pretty pathetic. And I think any Tampa officer that was there, or these outside agencies that came in, were like, what the fuck? You guys are premier agency, the 9th largest, and you let shit get burned down. You basically didn't do nothing. We'll get to that. You can see all that on video. And so rumor has it that this statement was made. No, I can't confirm this. This is a rumor, but when you look at all the facts in here, that a certain person said, if we get a chance to make an example out of somebody, we're going to make an example out of them. Next thing you know, I'm watching the news and I see, I'm already retired by then, and I see Yannick's face on the news mugshot. I'm like, what the fuck did Yannick do? Like, what's going on? Then I hear the story and I'm like, what? There's no way. Then you saw him perp walk. That means you're walked down through the cameras out of this SOC, which has to be organized by the PIOs, directed by who, to do this, just to make this guy look even worse. Now go back and look at Sheriff Conister's press release about Yannick Amin, and it is, and what you find afterwards is just awful, man. So he jumps the gun, and he goes by an allegation made by other deputies, mind you, but it didn't make any sense at the time. You didn't have to be there to kind of like, this doesn't make any sense, but there were so many witnesses, including, from what I understand, the Ghetto Bird, the helicopter, might have video on it. I don't know, maybe. So Yannick's charged with aggravated assault firearm for telling this guy he's going to blow his fucking head off. Well, I don't know whether it's a crime when you're a cop and a guy's crawling through weeds unhandcuffed, and he was actually mistakenly released by the sheriff's office, and they were tasked to go find him, and he's running from him, and he's in the woods crawling through. They don't have these weapons, but this guy don't want to go back, obviously. He doesn't want to be arrested, and he's not listening to commands. And you got a bunch of seasoned deputies on a specialized squad there, but the sergeant with the most experience is the most vocal, saying, show me your hands, I'm going to blow your fucking head off. Now, if you're a bad guy and you heard that, you're probably going to be like, well, he's going to blow my head off, I better show my hands, or I might get my head blown off. So, yeah, you got to talk that way. It's a little gruff every time, and it might even violate the policy over cussing, but come on, man. You got to do it. And it worked. So he's accused of, like, the way it was portrayed is he puts his gun on this guy's head, I'll kill you. Come on, man. It's absurd. He wouldn't do this in front of these people anyway. And as we later find out, it was all untrue. So his life is fucking put on hold and essentially ruined. These images aren't off. They're not scrubbed. They're all out there. And the biggest problem is, contrary to what the public believes, you think officers should be treated this way, but there's a thing called the Policeman's Bill of Rights. So they do a parallel investigation. If it turns into a criminal investigation, they're supposed to do that first, and then they do an administrative investigation because the criminal is supposed to supersede that. Well, this was kind of morphed, but any way you look at it, the Florida Policeman's Bill of Rights is in statute. It's completely violated. Alleged that the IA people even told the sheriff at the time, don't charge him, you don't have this, there's nothing here. You can't do this, and I'm going to do it. He goes and charges this guy with these crimes and doesn't even consult with Andrew Warren, the state attorney, which is every sheriff that hears this story. If you saw this report, what I ask all you other sheriffs, do you not know you got to contact the state attorney's office when you charge a police officer with a crime, especially of this caliber, and you put him on national news? Come on, he knew what he was doing. So this goes forward, and of course, a bunch of heroic guys, kind of like a pro bono effort, former real investigators from some federal agencies that I think did this on their own dime, realized this is terrible. And long story short is they did this investigation independently, and guess what? Andrew Warren dropped the charges and even wrote a scathing response to it, the sheriff at the time, and it can be found online too. I'm not going to add all this stuff. You guys can do your own damn homework, but it's there, and says, I didn't see anything wrong, but he certainly didn't violate the law. So here Yannick is removed from his job, nationally embarrassed. I mean, national news, his military career, his family, everybody looks at him. I don't care who you are, nobody will look at you the same if you had that picture on there, because they might not know the outcome. Like, that's our sergeant, no, that's so-and-so's dad, his kids, the embarrassment they went through. And then thinking, I'm not going to have a job now, let them go to prison. And it's over with. But guess who's paying for the lawsuit? That guy in the camera and all of you, because of this guy's like ridiculously overzealous, over the top, I don't need to listen to anybody attitude. I mean, dude, take a lesson from Bob Gutteri, dude. He takes his time. He lets his investigators investigate. And he doesn't fall prey to the public opinion and say, oh, I'll do this. He says, no. We're going to let my guys do an investigation that's fair and impartial. Now, I'm not comparing this to your IA stuff. But then we're going to give the state attorney, they're going to make the decision, not the sheriff's office. We're going to give them the facts. They're the charging agent. We're going to let them do this because they won't have to try it. But no, you got to jump to conclusions, Chad, purely. So we got that. And then, that bleeds into, the whole thing with the COVID-19 pastor arrest. Now, everybody's got their views on the COVID and this, but bottom line is, that was, and I know the times were kind of wild, but man, you didn't have to do that because, and I know the charges were dropped, and I don't know if the guy dropped the lawsuit. He probably did because he's a pastor. But again, the embarrassment you caused yourself, the agency, people automatically remember that. You're the sheriff that arrested the guy for COVID-19. You are, Chad. They're not going to forget that. But then you went to see this guy while he's out on bond, which is not too good. It's almost on the edge of witness tampering, I guess, is the way they look at that. But you're arresting a guy, and then is he now able to influence you to get the charges dropped? Whatever your reasoning was, we know it was about the media. You felt the heat. Why don't you just, again, say, we're dropping the charges, we agree with that. But come on, man. This stuff, this is what we're dealing with you, buddy, and your media staff polishing you up, and people forget all these things real quick. But, it's awful. So, and then we go on to this DA consideration. As well as I know, what it takes for security clearance for the DEA. And I know you didn't have the background security on that head, so you probably, I'm quite certain, haven't taken a polygraph test since you got hired 30-something years ago. and who you bump elbows with, and your finances are part of the investigation for the background. So regardless, people, Chad didn't do this because he's a better man from Trump, or was it because of this background? All this I've spoken of alludes to something's not right here. Take the politics out of it, but let's take your background coming up and what it requires to be DA. And not to mention you weren't experienced. Why did you say I wasn't experienced enough for this? A lot of people don't realize the DA is an international investigative body. They're involved in narco-terrorism. So they have to sit with the big boys up in even the situation room. And you know, Chad, they were in Afghanistan even picking off poppies and doing a lot. Most people don't know the DA was active over there. As a matter of fact, we lost a former deputy, Chad McMichaels, who became DA agent in a helicopter crash over there. So you know what this entails. So, but you went out there and said that you withdrew your name when the president says, no, that didn't happen. Maybe we need a better statement on that. I think it might be uncomfortable, but it also just shows this giant picture of you in this constant bubble as a public figure. You know, and I know in your head right now, you're like, oh, this is who you talking about? Because, you know, you're the guy that did this, whatever. It isn't about me. You're the sheriff of the county. I'm not the sheriff of the county. You are. And this is the image you portray. But we know, look at the stank on you, buddy, all the way down. It's awful. And who you cavort with, as the letter stated that was sent by my neighbor. It's pretty funny. Let's talk about your failed diversion program. So, buddy, that you collaborated with State Attorney Andrew Warren on, and I'm not a fan of Andrew Warren, but you helped implement these and you ran on these diversion programs. But again, you kind of used those to support his suspension collectively, publicly, as we saw. And you stood up there, which is shocking because we know where your donations went to, and you support this guy. So, regardless, I made it clear as the NCIC guy that through my chain of command I was ignored, that it's impossible for a street deputy to run a true criminal history, even get it back from the teletype people, to issue these adult diversion programs. And if you don't know what that is, disobedient people, it's a misdemeanor. An adult that never had a misdemeanor, so give him a diversion program. You're an adult, for God's sake. It's a misdemeanor. Go deal with it in court. You screwed up. But no, we give them a second chance before the first chance. But here's the flaw. They're basing this off this criminal history in Hillsborough County that we run and the deputies have access to, and they don't even know how to interpret this. But the problem is, as pointed out in my master's thesis, and the NCIC CJIS people will tell you, is every state and every jurisdiction doesn't properly put misdemeanors in there as arrests. Some put convictions. So this guy could be arrested 5 other times for the same charge, but now he might not be convicted of it, but now you give him diversion for it when he's got a pattern of this behavior. And this could go even up to batteries, domestic batteries. So it's impossible. It was a failed system. It was brought to your attention, but as far as I know, they're still doing it. And we can go do a test online. I'd show everybody you can't see this. Even Pasco County enters somebody differently than we do in Hillsborough County. It's a major issue of the system, and it's failed. It's ridiculous that we have a diversion program that's issued by deputies on the street, and the state attorney, at least we got rid of him for that because it's garbage. But that's not a deputy's position to do that. I mean, we got to have some the ability to make some decisions, but it's there's too much of a technology screw up, and then when it comes back, when somebody gets hurt, we're like, we told you so. Why? Oh, the cops screwed up this, and the public outcry blames us. Anyhow, your self-promotion and taxpayers' funds, which came up in this election, dude, it's ridiculous. You, Chad, are everywhere. Everybody that comes to town has heard about this, which I guess you want. I guess is a good tactic, is the political experts would say, and your former campaign manager, which I don't think you want to bring him up anymore. But yeah, you and the tune of more than $15,000 put these stickers on your car. Please tell me, everybody in Florida or whatever jurisdiction you might be in, if your chief law enforcement officer has their name on every goddamn thing with wheels. And in Hillsborough County, if you don't know, I think there's a fleet of close to 5,000 vehicles. Well, the unmarked ones, I don't know, but there's a lot of deputies. And every speed machine, anything this guy could put his name on. But if there was 10 cars getting stickered up at the garage, and we put the sticker on it to cost taxpayers your name, which do you think anybody cares about your name other than it comes up during an election? But you changed the patch on the uniform. It was changed back in the day to take off deputy to make us exclusive to the sheriff, and then you changed the patch, which I don't understand that thing either. Another money waste. But then you actually put your name on everything, and these guys at the garage have to spend the man hours putting these on. So I tell people, do the math on all these cars, and the one's ripped up in a crash or a pursuit, and you got to do it again, and they got to produce a sticker and have a sticker machine. It's totally unnecessary. But the study was done, I guess, by the media, and it was in tune of the last is $15,000. So I'm sure it's way more now. But man, we know who you are, buddy. You self-promote enough on social media now. I mean, let's face it, you're everywhere. As we can't help to see you. So I doubt you need to keep spending our money on your stupid name. Luxury vehicle purchases, buddy. You want to talk about them Tahoes? I know this is going to come out in this Doge thing. Do you think you need armored vehicles? I'm trying to understand why you need an armored vehicle. I mean, I guess I don't know. Is it dangerous being the sheriff? I don't get it because I can see the government have it. Is it being used for VIP travel? I don't know, but is it necessary to purchase armored vehicles and have other people have them too? Again, you see Grady, Bob Gutierrez, all these other sheriffs, they drive themselves around in regular cars. They sit out there. They don't have a goon squad protect them. You are not the president. You're not the governor, and your wife ain't the first lady, buddy. You ain't afforded all that at our dollar, on our tax dollar. And it's pretty ridiculous. So I didn't even know this was happening. So you know how I found out it happened. So everybody can see that goes to a football game, especially this weekend with the 49ers against the Bucks. I'm sure he'll be there. When you see this Tahoe coming down with lights and sirens, and from what I've been told, like a little mini motorcade going through traffic, yeah, that's probably Sheriff Conister to go to his box seat luxury box. Yeah, he's on duty. Is he in uniform? I doubt. Is he technically on duty at Sheriff County? But you're not really on duty. Your presence isn't required there in any form or fashion, especially if you're going there to watch the football game in your own box. So what are you doing using public taxpayers funded money to do this motorcade, and the man hours go with it in your protection squad and our gas? And why are civilians running in your car when it's against policy, your own policy? So if you get in a crash, you're at fault, or they're hurt, who's on the dime? Us? But there's people that said you've almost run, your little motorcades almost run them over. That's from other officers from other agencies that have seen this. And they're going, what the hell is it? Who's this guy think he is? I mean, dude, it's unreal. The money spent. So if you don't know, lay public, these guys work a weekend. They're forced to work the weekend, and they're not getting paid off-duty pay by the stadium, which ultimately comes from taxpayers too if it's a stadium, but through a different pot of money. But he's working for him. They got to work what they call adjustment if they're not getting overtime. But then if they're given overtime to do personal stuff on the weekend for the sheriff, do like hoopla crap like this. Otherwise, they got to flex it off. And it's usually not when they want to, but when they flex it off, that means they're pulled out of the zone that day and their regular patrol duties, like the motormen, and then they're pulled off their other duty day to give them that time back because they don't want to spend money on them, so they give them the day off. So then we're loss of patrol again. And let's face it, this motor unit thing, I see the necessity, but all of them having an undercover vehicle and all this high speed stuff for aggressive driving, I get it if it's grant paid, tell us it is, but I don't think it all is. But yeah, that's a lot of control. So, but let's talk back about these Hellcats that all the colonels are driving. And I just got this from one of your guys told me about this. Why did you purchase Hellcats and these guys have 2 vehicles assigned to them as colonels? For one, so the public knows, I think I mentioned before, Hillsborough County has one of the most restrictive pursuit policies. They might call it off. They called one off when the deputy was shot at. But the policy says you can't chase in an undercover vehicle or an unmarked vehicle unless it's absolutely necessary or until you can be relieved. But I don't ever remember a major or a colonel even being initiating a pursuit. Well, I've been there. Well, I take that back. One guy, and that was like when I first started, and that poor dude took a round in the face. He lived, but he's the only guy with initiated pursuit. He was hardcore. But Chad, that ain't you, and they ain't none of these colonels, and they ain't gonna get in a pursuit because they're gonna get rammed up. But a Hellcat Charger? Please tell me why they need Hellcats. And now the Hellcats, why are we maintaining these things? It doesn't make any sense. There's zero fiscal responsibility here. And we've been saying this, I've been saying this since election. This is absurd. If you're doing this to build morale, come on. No, man, give them the money. I'd rather you pay a deputy more than these colonels having 2 cars and unnecessary Hellcat. Jeez. So your campaign retaliation, which I'm sure in all this, people ask, are you afraid of this? I'm sure in some form you'll try to retaliate against me, but I don't know how. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But the campaign retaliation, you got a deputy, and I explained this before, and this guy was just involved in a major incident, and I didn't like him. Didn't get along with him when he was lieutenant in the Homeland Security Department, and that's who I had my shout out with on the mounted unit. But nonetheless, he worked his ass off the sheriff's office. He worked in the jail before, he worked in SID. He was a cop at that time, and I guess we had a difference of opinion. But regardless, he gave money to another candidate's campaign, and you outed him on that, and you had your people reassign him and take his car away and put him in a different district to punish him, and we're open about it. Ask Gurgel. I don't know if he still works there, if we'll go on record, but everybody saw it, especially a bunch of people that don't work here no more. So come on, dude. So let's talk about these George Floyd riots and what happened to the budget, Chad, for the chemical munitions and stockpiles that ran out because your buddy ran it and was never in the office. And when shit hit the fan, an agency like ours had expired munitions or ran out, and then where were all the deputies that were not on duty, and why weren't they called in? Was it because it was election year and he didn't want sheriff emblems out there? So as we saw in the video, TPD stands by and gets their ass handed to them, and buildings burnt down, and your SWAT guys drive around in circles looking like idiots. Not gonna SWAT guys. They were just doing what they were told, getting crap thrown at them, and they run out of chemical munitions. And then you have to call in all these other small agencies. They're like, why are we calling? Where's the sheriff's office? Oh, they're standing over there by the mall with no protective gear on. Yeah, we remember the video of even Anthony Collins, who kind of put his ass on the line there, with no protective gear on for riots, and he's running into the mall building on live TV trying to stop these guys from looting and maybe burning it down, and you still didn't call anybody in. And look at the damage. And you and I both know the Tampa police chief was livid with you, and you made a terrible, terrible call there. And what made it worse was when you went out of town and you left Anthony in charge, kind of scapegoat. Tell me in the history of the sheriff's office, all you old timers, where we would even let this happen and let people get this close, but they were able to, live TV, folks, and you can pull up the video, this happened. They were able to rip open the Sally Port, which is the double-gated system where we bring our prisoners. There's one more door going into the jail. They're like, well, they could have never gotten in jail. Bullshit, they couldn't have gotten in jail with that many people and weapons and vehicles. But the whole point is we allowed them, without patrol guys and no guys on the riot squad, they broke in our jail. Ripped that Sallyport gate out. What did that cost us? How did they get that close? It was that much that you had to put an alert on the entire jail. But they got in, dude, and they laughed about it. And it went on and on and on. There was no response. It's on TV. Where were you, Chad? Oh, I know where you were. In this time of crisis, it was so important to arrest one of your own and do this. But where were all you guys at during this unrest? Because you weren't in Hillsborough County, right? The majority of the command staff and your buddies, where were you? Was it Key West, maybe? Maybe? Yeah, guys don't get vacations certain times as deputies and detectives, but let's leave as the Supreme Allied Commander, Sheriff, during civil unrest, and now we're going to put our faith in you, and then we see our jail get broken into at our tax dollars' expense, and possibly injury of deputies and even possible breakout of violent inmates, and a total distraction shutdown, which disrupts the entire jail system, because you forget I worked in there too, from Orient to Falkenberg, and manpower. Folks, wake up, man. Look at this historically, this guy. Your firearm discharge, Sheriff, in the HSO Operations Center under questionable circumstances. How, please tell me, how a guy with all your caliber experience and the fact that you wear that SWAT pin because you're high speed, low drag, shooter, operator, that you had an office pop in the SOC with people in the building. Now, I don't know if it could have penetrated the floor above you with dispatchers, but you discharged a firearm. You just have this record of absolute, look at this record, but everybody wants to look at you and says that you have minimal investigative experience, very minimal. But your whole pedigree, how you came up, is so absolutely dumbfounding to me. I saw it when I got there. I'm like, who is this guy? I mean, it just blows my mind. But I know how you got there. We don't know how you got there. The public knows how you got there because we know who you married into. Yeah, it's a shame, you know. All these other deputies, rank file, busting their ass. And you talked about timing with me bringing this up. I don't know what that meant. My timing is questionable because I ain't running for office. I mean, sport. I don't know who's running. You were going to give Anthony the keys to the castle in 6 months, but that all went to shit. So let's talk about timing in the last election. If you want to talk about timing, how was it that your son, by the way, folks, his son was convicted of aggravated assault, I believe, for stabbing a kid. It's on video and has videos of him. Zekron, the famous Zekron. Now, I feel sorry for that kid. I don't think he would have ended up like that, but it sounds like he was kind of just chucked to the weeds. I don't know. I don't like what he's about and what he represents, but I mean, was a good parent in here because you went to this side and chased the ladder of success via billionaire money. But why was it that his court case got pushed off, his sentencing, until after the election, which I brought up in these videos and whatnot too? Why? How did that happen? because I don't think anybody else here could do it. I don't think there's one other person out there, civilian, could have got away with that. By the way, this guy went to prison. The sheriff's son, who apparently does not like police, makes videos. Now, it's a son. Kids are going to do what they're going to do regardless of your influence. But when you stood up there and you preach about what a grand person you are, and you pretty much tell everybody else they're no bueno, and this is what happened in your family. So this just shows that maybe you should check your own house, and in this way, 2 ways, especially the sheriff's office, before you go out there and try to rip on your constituents or your own deputies, or even in this case, me. Just saying. We want to talk about character. Let's compare character. But how did that case get pushed off? Now, here's my closing opinion. This is what I sent the governor. We must ask, how can the public or deputies trust leadership built on fraud, abuse of authority, and systematic misconduct? The damage to public perception and internal morale is irreparable. Promotions were denied, careers destroyed, families divided, and multiple deputies committed suicide, including murder-suicide, while under the sheriff's supervision. At minimum, these tragedies warrant examination of whether unchecked pressure, bullying, harassment, and retaliation contributed. I got to stop right there, because this right here is, I kind of want to almost come to this end. There's a little bit more, but after talking to this girl's father, I did not know all the details of this. This might be the most mind-blowing, disgusting thing of all this. As we know, under your command, is it all preventable? No. But like I just said, was because of bullying in your atmosphere that you created at the sheriff's office is just one that I had never seen before. And I've been out and I hear about it. These guys are afraid to go to work. They're not afraid of bad guys. They're afraid of your staff. But in this case, we had 3 murder-suicides in 4 years, where one deputy, if the folks don't know, on the east side of the county, kills his wife, drives to his daughter's house, murders her, and then his grandchild. Murders his grandchild. Where was this guy? Now, this guy had been in shooting years before, so you got to question, was he treated properly into this? What gets you to do this? And he drives to a school, gets on the radio and says, I just killed my family. He's basically baiting the deputies in so they'll kill him. And he eventually kills himself in front of all of his fellow deputies. And one tells me, and I don't know this to be true, I'm just telling you what was told to me, but I had to ask why. This guy no longer worked at the sheriff's office. He's a canine officer. He says, I was told that I was a coward because I did not release my dog on the deputy that killed himself. And I'm not even going to say his name. But I didn't really, he's my best friend, and I watched him stand there. He's one of my closest friends. There's no way I'm going to release my dog on this deputy that he's another deputy. This had gone on. I couldn't do it. But to fire him for that, this guy was a military vet, worked in special ops, was a TAC P. Military guys know how TAC Ps are. Worked countless hours as a canine. I didn't particularly, same thing. He was a kind of arrogant fucker, but aren't we all? But that was just savage, man. But then the other guy, I don't know anything about him or what happened, but I know he killed his wife and then himself up here in I guess Land O'Lakes in Pasco County's jurisdiction. But I do know now, after talking to her father and hearing this story, especially as a dad, and my daughter now is close in age as to when she became a victim, and this, so you all know, is going to trial in civil court, but you can look up the countless videos and news stories about this poor girl, and This happened back in February 1st of 2022. Abigail Bieber. I didn't have the fortune of knowing her. I've heard nothing but amazing things about her. And I know she comes from family law enforcement. Her brothers are both local police officers. And people that know her. And I just, the other day, I hear her name constantly. And when I heard her case afterwards, like, how does this things happen? You always question, how do these things happen? How do these things happen? And I'm very in tune with the PTSD stuff now. A lot of my fellow vets and police officers, and I don't think people understand that enough. I don't think the sheriff understands it enough with his own people. I don't think he's been exposed to enough incidents intimately, but I don't think he manages that correctly. Maybe he hasn't been taught how to manage it, but I don't think it's managed correctly. But in this case, this guy, this other deputy, I don't know his name, but I just know he's a piece of shit. They'll go on a little vacation up in St. Augustine, and they had been together, dated or something, and she wouldn't have anything to do with him. And at the end of the vacation, they start arguing, and I guess he barricades the door inside, and these are all deputies from Hillsborough County in this group, goes up there and knows something's going on, and they're fearful. They all know about the history here of this guy and his domestic violence history. Now they all know this, that he was kind of off the chain and a little bit too much with this Abigail, being rough and whatnot. And I'm not blaming these guys, and I know the father doesn't blame them at all. But I guess one of them tried to get in and said, "Hey, I need something, tampon or something to get in a room." And long story short, this guy shoots Abigail in the head 3 times and kills himself. A fellow deputy murdered by a deputy. And then these other deputies, which we'll go into what they did, I'll let y'all have your own opinion. I just wanted to share this because it should have been looked into for other reasons, but it all comes out as noted in this testimony, and by a citizen that came out. As soon as she learned this, these other people started coming forward, and this girl says, "Hey, I was a victim of domestic violence by this guy when he was a deputy too, like 2 years ago, and stalking, and he did all this shit to my car. He's a nut." But when she called the sheriff's office, essentially nothing was done. Allegedly, a report wasn't taken. It wasn't ran up the chain. You're a deputy under domestic violence allegations. A supervisor definitely has to come out, and an IA investigation definitely has to start. And you definitely got to be removed from duty, even if not charged, because that's what they've done to everybody else. But you got to remove the threat. And no threat was removed, but the paperwork wasn't even done, which is a misdemeanor in Florida and a crime punishable because officers are required to document domestic violence in a statute, and it wasn't done. So this happens. This son of a bitch shouldn't even been a deputy. He would have been fired had they followed through it. So these deputies and the supervisors screwed up bad that day. And if y'all are there, y'all should feel disgusted with yourself now. You should feel tremendous guilt because you fucked up bad. For whatever reason, you fucked up. I know you're named in this suit. And this girl's dead. And you're still a police officer. You should probably throw it away. Now, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But what makes it worse is she's murdered. This comes out afterwards. What did the sheriff do? What did the professional standards do? What did we do to find out who fucked up that led to all this? I know what they did. First of all, they kind of went back and pretty much called the original victim a liar. And then they didn't discipline anybody involved. No, they went we got to button this up. We got a big problem here. And then the dad's going down to IA talking to him. And this I just learned. He doesn't mind me telling you. He told me if I could go ahead. And he's on multiple things talking about this. There's a professional standards detective down there named Sam Portland, and I imagine he's still there and in IA right now doing cases, according to the website, I'm pretty sure. And we have a canine handler that said, I was on scene that day, I saw this, and tells the dad, or I should say, he was there at the original scene of this misdemeanor crime involving a citizen was reported, and tells the brothers, who were Clearwater police officers and canine officers too, that's kind of how they know each other. The canine, I was there. So the dad confronts them in a meeting with the Colonel Lazinski and all them, and Sam Portland, and says, hey, idiots, your deputy so-and-so was there. And they have a little sidebar meeting. He confers. He's like, oh, no, he wasn't there. He's mistaken. See, the deputy's mistaken? Didn't know where he was? He was so mistaken that he went and told these two brothers, oh, yeah, I was there. What would be his motivation? I don't think he was like trying to get anybody in trouble, but he's saying, yeah, I was there that day. So they go back and they try to get the GPS records off the cars, which are free there. Magically, guess whose GPS thing ain't recording right there that day? You guessed it. The canine guy who told the brothers that was mistaken. So this is all available. It's on Court Rainey's testimonies. Me saying this shit again. This is just paraphrasing and regurgitating what the dad told me, and this is coming. So again, this is who you got running this fucking shit show right now. And I keep hearing I'm disgruntled. And the more I keep saying this, yeah, I'm disgruntled. I shouldn't even say pissed. I'm highly agitated in the sense of, how dare you like criticize all these people and that are bad and stand by this and not want to be just open and honest and have a fair and impartial investigation. I can't get this. I sent that out to all these other sheriffs in the entire state. I got one response back. I think most of them were staying clear from my email. And this guy's like, I stand by Sheriff Conister, this little Beaupont County, Bradford County. And this guy says, this ain't the forum for that. I stand by. I'm like, you didn't even read the shit. What I asked you, would you support independent investigation? And what are you telling me up there? I'm going to block your email on public record. Well, that wasn't a question. So is he going to stand by you if something bad comes out? But who would be opposed to this in your position? And I'm not asking just for me. Clearly, look at the threads on these news stories, Chad. These are all your constituents, and look who they are. These aren't some nutbags out here, like, I don't know, maybe you're portraying me that. They're people that are business owners, veterans, and they're saying this. You don't think you owe an obligation to them, into these families of these victims? I say you do. And now I'm saying the public, you can see all my stuff. Maybe you should agree, disagree. Let it be known. I don't know. I don't even know how I'm going to post this yet. But we'll see. You'll see the news stories. You can put it on there. I got interviewed again today by Channel 10. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but they came to me. I didn't go to any of these media areas. They came to me. All because I sent this letter. I don't even know how they initially saw it. Regardless. I mean, the victims of these crimes are being denied resources. Manpower and assets are diverted towards public relations event designed to promote sheriff personally. A review HSO shows command staff attending banquets, parades, and community events, wasting taxpayer funds, inflating. Everyone go on the HSO website now on Facebook and see how many pictures a week you see this big ass round table and you see a bunch of, not all of them are, but let's face it, the white shirt ain't very flattering on these people, but 8 to 10 ranking staff members at these luncheons. They go every day, eat lunch. For what? Because their supervisors are now either position supervision to go eat lunch, and people say, "Oh, we love you." Can we send one person? Do we have to send all these supervisors? Because I know you're all driving in your own cars too, because you're all coming from different neck of the woods when you're going there. Is this really necessary every day of the week, or is this self-promotion? This is what we're talking about. Is our money wasted and police work not being done, management not being done for your deputies, training, what have you? Because they're all there. And you got crime victims out here. It's like, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. We don't have time. They're not getting fairly investigated because nobody's there. Because you got lower supervisors having to fill in for these people. I'm going to bite my tongue. I want to call them with these luncheons. But I mean, go on there. It's almost like, what do? They just go to lunch every day in uniform? I mean, how long does that take? So, we know, Chad, I'm looking at my letter here and my position on this. Your rise has been clouded by controversy. You know, I know he's been pardoned, but, and I don't know, maybe this guy, I don't know what his capabilities are against me, but this is all out there publicly. He's a celebrity. The law is about releasing information about celebrities. He's a public figure, and he was convicted of a felony and pardoned by Trump. You met him before that, but as we had a policy about consorting with felons, he was found time, and yeah, Sheriff G patched that up. This whole protection thing, we're all aware of it. It was all real shady then, and it's pretty questionable right now. A lot of people don't know about Flathead County in Montana, where Big Daddy there, or what you call him, Mr. D, has these big parties, and the former sheriff now has a property, a couple miles down the road, and that came from all these other sources. Even some up there, they're like, "What's this about?" So is there anything there? Like, who used to own that land? David G., who was a great sheriff, by the way. But as far as management, I think people love working for him. But was there anything maybe done, trade you all right, hey, we're going to take care of this, get something? I'm just questioning, because the appearance is that all of a sudden you're a sheriff and this happened. It's just odd, because we know your qualifications prior to that were pretty awful. So I guess some people get lucky. So maybe, and I got to revoke a couple of these after things I've heard the last few days. So I wouldn't offer a bitch without a solution, and I think I've done that fairly. But I think you should resign yourself. But worst case, if anybody else agrees, there should be independent oversight and a fair, impartial investigation by nobody even connected to Hillsborough County, either federally or FDLE, but not even through our local state attorney. Not saying that she's doing anything wrong, but it just reeks of improprieties. It should just go to another venue. But I do suggest candidates for appointment, if you'd like to look them up, and I mentioned him earlier, was Major Craig Timko, a veteran of the U.S. Army, a former SWAT team leader, over 2 decades with HSO and patrol recruitment, Homeland Security, and CID leadership. He holds Bachelor and MS Criminal Justice from St. Leo. I got this from their website. Craig was an old guard dude in the Army. He's a hell of a man. Worked with him. I think fantastic, very, very well-respected leader. And I do know that he stood up for his guys during the Super Bowl that were being overworked and said, "No, we're not doing this. We don't work for the Super Bowl committee. We got deputies out here leaving their families all weekend, getting paid overtime, and they're strung out. I'm going to send them home. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that." And what'd you do? You got transferred them for taking care of his guys. Or whoever transferred them, but you're under your command. Because somebody wanted to, seek some help from the NFL, maybe for a job when they got retired. I don't know. A lot of cops there when Super Bowl comes to town. Dennis Fogarty, worked with him We're 25 years in HSO. Now, Chad, I'll be clear here. These guys have nothing to do with this. I'm just saying, I know these guys, and I'm just giving my opinion. So please, they have nothing to do with this. They might say he's a asswipe. Me. I don't care. But I think they're capable of doing this job based on what I know and their background and what I've seen them do as investigators. They could say this guy's a dipshit about me. I don't care. I'm still going to endorse them or say I think this is where they should be. I got zero ties to them. I haven't spoke to them. Maybe Craig 2 years ago. I haven't seen Fogarty in years, but I do know what the people on the street say about him constantly. And these guys are that, and their backgrounds, and a couple of them, and Fogarty, anybody that's ties to the military, they get more of a up from me. And we know you weren't ever in the military, and we know Don Lazinski was never in the military. We certainly know Tommy St. John wasn't in the military, and we certainly know Christy Poore wasn't in the military, and Frank Losat wasn't. And we go back down and forth, and let's look at mostly comparative leadership with the military background and the paramilitary organization. Well, Chris Rule was, but like I said, he was a good cop. But you might have missed some of that, in your bringing up is how to be a real leader, an effective leader. These guys got that. Now Fogarty, though, he was a military brat, but I know his upbringing and know all about his parents. So he's pretty much quasi-military. Colonel Rick Roebuck, veteran Marine Corps, FBI National Academy graduate. There's no doubt in my mind he's clear of all this stuff. Just too much integrity. Over 20 years with HSO. He served DUI, professional standards, SWAT, CID. Dude's squared away. Joe Mauer, I don't know him. You have, we can agree on that. You've pushed him. I heard late that he's involved in one of these lawsuits, but I don't know him, but I just see that. I don't really know where he came from. I didn't know him. He came out of nowhere, but I would say that, I might be wrong. I think the fact that he's bilingual, I think he's half Hispanic, full Hispanic. I don't know. He's a minority. He's a U.S. Army combat veteran, and he's worked in professional standards. I don't know. Maybe he's bad, but a lot of people say good things about him. And then externally, there's no doubt in my mind, this guy is a great step-in candidate. If somebody wanted to point him, we did push him, and this is not motivated by all this. But of course, it's going to come back around because I think who else is capable of this? I don't have nothing to do with this. I don't know anybody, but I know this guy. And I think he would have full support of a lot of the community. And he's pretty much bipartisan in all of this. Or I should say, yeah, that's probably a good example. Because he ran as an independent. And I think he might even, I don't know, he might switch to the Democratic Party. I don't know. But Ronald McMullen, he was a major with Tampa Police Department, commander of Special Operations Division, overseeing SWAT, bomb squad, K-9 aviation, hostage negotiation, and other tactical units. Over 30 years with TBD. Holds a BA in criminal justice from St. Leo University and advanced leadership certificates, recognized distinguished service and training. He was also given he went to Brown University for a while. So, yeah, kind of Ivy League smart dude. And you hear this guy's story, what he went through as a kid in Brandon and made his way up as a cop. And he's highly regarded with TPD. And he's an outsider, but he's a cop and he knows the area and he's a good leader. So that's just my 2 cents. I'll put some other videos out there because I feel it necessary, and that would be in response to the Creative Lovian article that one of my neighbors put a letter into the sheriff, and I'm still just dumbfounded that he printed this because it's just so ridiculous, but I'll let y'all get decide for yourself. I line by lined it, and how stupid it is. And I've already shown it with a bunch of my neighbors and whatnot here. They're like, holy crap. I've had calls from retired majors, colonels, other agencies like, this sheriff actually put that out there? Are you kidding me? So I'll make sure y'all see that. It's pretty comical. And there's going to be more to come with that on the legal side, I promise you. But that's how our sheriff behaves. I I guess I messed up his eyebrows or whatever. I made him get a wrinkle. Anyway, please take all this account. You can criticize the shit out of me. I don't care. Again, this isn't about me. This is about everything I explained. And make your decision. If you support this guy and everything I said, you should be contacting the governor's office, just like I did. And you can do that on your own. It's just an email or phone calls or talking to the media. Look at it. Just call the sheriff himself. Let him know how you feel. So that's all I got.